Today we're going to talk about the super popular Gen Z, Gen Alpha calendar app for high school and college students, which is Saturn. We're going to talk about why it's designed so well, why it's been so successful. Saturn has millions of users and is consistently in the top 10 of the App Store, every August when school's about to start again. And so we're going to talk about why Saturn has built an everlasting, viral social app while not crashing and burning like a ton of other Gen Z social apps, like Gas, like Houseparty, like BeReal. Maybe you could say Clubhouse, not really Gen Z, but social apps like that went crazy viral. All these apps grew to millions of users in just months, but also lost millions of users even faster than they gained them. So why is Saturn still around? Well, that's what we're going to cover today. Now, I've studied a lot of consumer apps, but few have as many great design and product strategy lessons for designers, for founders that Saturn has, that I'm going to cover in today's videos. So I hope you stick around to watch. It's going to be really dense with information. And before I jump in, if you find yourself enjoying this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Helps me know to keep taking the time to make these videos, and I really appreciate your support. So in past videos, I've gone through the app myself, gone through the onboarding as if I was a user joining the app for the first time, but I'm not a high school or college student, so I can't really go through the app myself. But I did find a demo that the co-founder and CEO of Saturn did. So we're just gonna watch that alongside with them, and I'll pause it throughout to talk about what I like about the design, the strategy of the app. And then after going through the app, we'll talk more about why it was successful, how they monetize, and why I'm really bullish on them in the long term. So it should be an awesome video, so we'll start with the app design now.
Saturn is the best calendar for high schoolers, designed to make you more productive and more connected with your community. Today, we're going to do a brief product walkthrough. When you open Saturn, it opens immediately to your calendar, and it's your school schedule.
So first, it's just beautifully designed. Like, I love the way it looks. The colors are great. The emojis are great. Gen Z cares a lot about vibes and aesthetic, and this look is so much more appealing than a Google Calendar or a Blackboard calendar or whatever students are typically using. Like I said, the colors are bright, they're unique. I like that blue, purple. There are lots of emojis throughout. The timers are dynamic, as you saw the countdown, when your class ends. I'm sure students love watching that if they're in a class, just pulling out their phone and seeing it just go tick down. I'll talk more about that later, but just the way it looks is awesome. That Instagram stories type look that Gen Z is so familiar with, saying, it looks like when other people's classes are finished. It looks like they're also in the AP Calculus class with you, considering they have the same emojis as the AP Calculus class and the same time remaining. Just this initial design is already excellent visual design right there, and we'll keep going.
So I can see today's an odd day, and tomorrow could be an early dismissal, and students are always in control of the schedule. So you can crowdsource the schedule, and it will update automatically for you and everyone in the school.
So I love that crowdsource schedule updates feature, and that's just not even necessarily like a visual design piece, but a really smart product design piece that they're doing. Students are motivated to change their schedules to stay organized, but Saturn's app is smart enough to recognize that, if 20 students at XYZ high school added a 2-hour delay to their calendar for snow, Saturn will recognize that that's going to affect everyone at that school and add that to everyone's calendar. So that's that crowdsourcing aspect. So that's just really smart feature to help students have that dynamic schedule that updates and shows important things that they're not going to see on a regular school calendar or any other calendar they see, because it's not getting updated. So that's just an awesome product design that improves the apps for users without Saturn really having to do much. They just can let the students handle that for the most part. So awesome feature right there.
Right now, I'm in AP Calculus, and we have 28 minutes left. The timer is a really helpful feature to know when to get to class on time.
So he said the timer's a great feature when to get to class on time. He's not going to say this, but it's a great way to see when class is going to end for someone that doesn't want to be in AP Calculus. But also, yes, knowing exactly when to get to class, that's appealing. It's nice to see these dynamic features like timers that you can see progress. Like, class ends in 11 minutes. Now it's 10 minutes and 58 seconds. Now it's 10 minutes and 56 seconds. Like, just seeing that is just a little more exciting. It's like Farmville. And Farmville keeps users in the game because they're so excited to harvest their crops that even though it'll take 5 minutes, they'll stay in the app, they'll click around, check the timer, now it's 4 minutes, okay, they'll click around some other things, check again, 2 minutes, and just kind of hang out until it's over, just because, I don't know, timers are just fun to look at for some human psychological reason. You just like looking at timers, so we'll keep going.
I can tap into AP Calculus, and I can see all of my classmates. These are other students at the school who have added AP Calculus on Saturn to their calendar. I can also see that I have a problem set due and browse my classmates. I can also open the class chat, which is a helpful way to communicate with other classmates.
So this is awesome. You can see who's all in your class. When you tap on the class, I'll have a lot more to say about that later. But I also really like this tasks feature. Like when you have work due, you not only have your schedule, but you also have your planner, at least that's what we used to call it, but where you can track when you have homework, when you have tests, and those get added to your schedule as well. It's just like, again, Google Calendar. You can keep your tasks in the same place where you keep your meetings. Here it's just doing this for classes in a really easy to track way. The class chat feature is really cool. I really like that. Obviously, my first thought goes to insanely high cheating potential if someone can just post in there, hey, I'll send my homework in here if everyone Venmos me $10 or something. But it's probably really fun to be in that group chat with students. You're in a group chat that you probably otherwise wouldn't have been in if it weren't for the Saturn app making it for you. You're in a class of 20 people, maybe you're friends with 3 of them, but those other 17 you wouldn't really communicate with if it weren't for the class. So now you guys can complain about the homework together, complain about the teacher, or talk about helping one another in upcoming tests or something. It certainly could become problems in a group chat around the class, but I think that's really cool. And I know I would like this in high school. And it's cool that this is for every single class you're in. So you're automatically in a lot of group chats with a lot of different people if you want to be more social and so on.
At the top of my screen are my friends. Amanda is one of my best friends, and I've pinned her on my home screen. I can see that she also is in AP Calculus, has 27 minutes left. Go ahead and tap on her and view the rest of her calendar. Tap on her profile, see her bio, her schedule.
It's cool to see when friends have certain things on their calendar. Certainly can seem invasive, but it's friends. Like you agree to show one another these things. I know you can hide your calendar if you want, but similar to just a workplace Google Calendar, you can see when other people have meetings and so on. And so that's just a nice little feature. I'm sure that feature drove a lot of adoption in the app early on, which again, I'll talk about later as one of their core strategic pillars. I love that calendar viewing journey, whatever, was started by clicking on, like that Instagram stories like bubble. Like, I just think it's good to replicate traditional human interaction patterns. Like Instagram stories are there. Everyone uses them. Everyone knows about them. It's comfortable for everyone. So I love that Saturn's copying that design and that functionality as like a quick way to look at the friends you most want to visit. So you can again tap it the same way and see when they're free, see when you can go talk to them next, and so on. So awesome feature. Love that they just essentially copied Instagram stories with that because, again, familiar design. So that's great.
Now I'm going to show you the directory. The directory is the best place to browse classmates, what's going on in the school, such as other group calendars.
So the directory is really cool because one, it's like, again, another way to see everyone in your class, everyone at your school, and find new friends. But what I really think is awesome is this group calendars feature. Like you can see when the basketball games are, when the football games are, when certain club events are, without having to text people or see who's going. Like you can see who added that to their calendar. And so I love that, just putting all this important shared events information in one place. I'm sure if I tap on the basketball game and then add it to my calendar and tap on it, I can see, 45 other people have added that to their calendar. So I know who's going, which is awesome. I mean, I talk a little bit more about this later, but high school is all about, and college is all about, like, who's going? Like, should I go to this party? Well, who's going? Should I go to this basketball game? Well, who's going? And you want to follow the people you want to interact with. And so Saturn just essentially puts that in the app to save you having to send that text of, well, who's going? Or like figure it out in a sneaky way to not seem, desperate or pushing too hard to see that person you want to see. Now you can just check these group calendars, and everyone's kind of opt into that openness about what they're doing. And so I love that. I'm sure group calendars is extremely popular. It's a genius idea. So I love that. Keep going.
If we go ahead and search for someone, search for Rob and I aren't friends yet. So I had to friend request him, and I don't have access to view his classes, his friends, his schedule. I can block Rob or report Rob if he violates our community guidelines.
So yeah, again, some privacy features. If you're not friends with them, you can't see anything about them, which is important because it is pretty invasive being able to see everyone's schedule. But if you're friends with them and you opt in for that, then it's fine. Also, I love just like, again, it's very Gen Z with the Bitmojis. I love that. You know, there's other social networks that I'm sure if you're friends with, you can click on, cancel request, the emoji, DM the emoji, the monkey emoji here. Again, just the look is very familiar to that target user, which I think is really important. There's a reason kids don't use Google Calendar. It looks plain, it looks boring, it's not dynamic. They're using Saturn because it looks familiar, it looks fun, it's interesting, it's dynamic, it's unique, colors pop, it's funny. You know, with the emojis, I'm sure people do funny things with that. So that visual design is just really smart. And you know, the founder of Saturn, I think, started this company when he was like 19. So he knows, he was in that group, he knows that group. And so it's a lot easier to build for that group when you're in that group, as we've talked about before in this YouTube channel many times, because he's kind of building for himself. He's building the app he wanted, and he knows how to make it look because he's in that group and he's talking to those people. And he's also, you know, as he gets older, he's probably mid-20s now, but he's getting constant feedback from student ambassadors at each school they're selling into saying, you know, how does it look? Does it need to look any better? Do you have any suggestions? And they're telling him like, hey, put in more emojis. Like, people love emojis. Or these colors are a little bland. Let's add some cool purple and blue. And so he's getting this information from his users, but that foundation was set as him being one of those users himself and knowing how to make it look to most appeal to that cohort of users. So we'll keep going.
Jumping ahead, Saturn is a fully fledged calendar, so we have advanced functionality such as group calendars. I'm part of a book club, so I can see this is an event for my book club and tap through, create events, and share them with the rest of the book club members.
Group calendars, again, we talked about this a bit. I'll talk about more later in terms of the strategy discussion, why I think it's so great. So I'm just gonna let this play for the last minute on mute because there's not much more he says. He kind of just talks about how you can change the look of the calendar, how you can edit your own profile. So there's not much else to add. It's a very simple app. It's just a calendar, but it has all these social features that make it really addicting for the type of user they're going after. What I think is a more interesting conversation to have about Saturn is how such a simple app like this has become used by millions and millions of people for years. You know, like I said, previous apps like BeReal, Clubhouse, Houseparty exploded and disappeared. So why has Saturn been able to stay? By targeting that same user, that same Gen Z age user, high school, college, in a social app. There are many reasons. First, this app isn't just fun and social and exciting. At the core of it, it solves an important problem for students. You know, like I said, BeReal, Clubhouse, Houseparty, they didn't need to exist. They weren't solving a problem. You know, we had Instagram, we had TikTok, we had Twitter, iMessage, FaceTime. Yeah, BeReal, Clubhouse, Houseparty, they were unique and they had a unique little spin on those apps. But at the end of the day, those apps, you know, the existing social networks had the larger distribution, had the larger switching cost, the larger staying power. You know, people have been on there for years. So many people are on there. These other apps just aren't as good because there aren't as many people on there. And as soon as that app, as soon as BeReal, you know, the person you follow most on BeReal, the person whose picture you always want to see, as soon as they drop off, you're way less interested in using the app. So you're going to drop off. And then someone else is going to drop off. And so that's why in this, you know, chart, like you can see, the drop-off effects is so quick because it's all about who else is using it. And if everyone's already using these other apps, they don't want to go on BeReal for the day, Clubhouse for the day, Houseparty for the day. They just want Instagram, they'll go back to it because that's the app with the most staying power and the most distribution and the most lock-in from so many different users. So those apps couldn't make it. They weren't solving a problem. They were just a unique spin on an existing social phenomenon. Saturn solves a problem. The founders actually like to say they made it, whereas the previous viral social consumer Gen Z apps didn't make it, is because those apps didn't have a single player mode. And Saturn does. Saturn is a calendar app for students who are actually some of the busiest people. They have a lot of different schedules, a lot of things to keep track of. There are multiple different schedules for students. None of them are dynamic or adaptable. It's all static. You have to read emails, you have to make mental notes. If there's a schedule change, add that to a different calendar. And it's all just boring. Saturn has it all in one place. It looks cool, it looks young, it looks fun. And so it's encouraging to that cohort of user, the young users, to engage with the app and use it because it's genuinely helpful. But of course, this type of user isn't always about productivity and organization. Like, they aren't super motivated to use a calendar app just for themselves, because again, this is before the social features kicked off. Like, how'd they get their first 100 users? So they made it more interesting and more unique. So they started by making really specific apps. Like, they made one app for one school that was that school's calendar app. They met with the popular kids in the school to make sure the app was appealing to them so that they can then tell their friends about it. The app was custom. They said they built it for the school, like Connecticut Weston High School. The app was called iWeston. The app logo was their school's logo. The colors were their school colors. And so because of that really intense personalization, because they went through, the popular kids that could spread it the fastest, and they talked to them and ensured they were building the right app for them rather than guessing, they said the night they launched, more than half of the student body joined within the first 3 hours, because it was just set up for that virality from the core group of users. And it looked great. It looked much better than what they were used to. There was some school pride associated to it. Once someone uses it, everyone starts wanting to use it. And it looked cool because the app logo was your school's logo. So it looked cool on a home screen because you see your school logo, you can tap on it, now you see your schedule. I don't know if they had, these other users' schedules on there yet, but it's something you want to engage with because it looks cool. Now, it didn't look great overall, as you can see in these pictures here. These colors don't look great. There's not really any pop. So why did it work? Because the value prop was still so strong. This was still a calendar that had all their information, which they didn't have before. And again, I think that timer feature is really interesting. Like, being able to see the exact time when things end. I like the percentages, seeing when the percentages, do 13% into AP English, wait until that goes to 14%, 15%. I think it's just a little more interesting and exciting and genuinely very helpful. So people were sticking around before it even got this, cool purple, blue emoji, Instagram-y feel. So this is how they got started, but how they take off was really those social features, which really compensated for the initial design, which they didn't care about because, yes, they wanted to track their schedules better, personal, school, homework, whatever they had going on. It's a helpful place to track. Great. Why they really wanted the app is the same reason why Facebook took off early on. It's the same lessons in 2004, 2005 from Facebook that Saturn took in 2019 for Saturn. High school and college students really care about what other people do. And it's often driven by who's their crush. A guy wants to know which classes the girl they have a crush on is taking. Girls want to know which classes that guy's taking. And that's what Facebook did early on. It posted people's schedules and what classes they were taking. Everyone was looking at that, and everyone needed to know who was taking which class. And Saturn just took those same exact design principles, which I love because it's just one of those things where things don't change much in apps, in user psychology especially. That never changes. And so Facebook started as a directory. You see someone's picture, you see their name, you see if they're single or not, and you see what classes they're taking. It was the best way to meet people. That's how Facebook started. That's why it was so viral at college campuses. And then, it became this juggernaut, and now it's where your grandma goes to post pictures. Saturn just started that again by saying, here's your calendar, here's everyone else's calendar at your school. Now, you can go look at other people's schedules, see which classes they're taking, see which classes your crush is taking, go take that class, and so on. It's the same exact loop. And it's genius because it's just a different interface instead of just posting updates about what you're doing or posting pictures, because you can't do that. That's done. That's Instagram. That's Facebook. Here they're saying you can still see where your crush is by just looking at their calendar. And then you can go interact with them and figure out, how you can get in front of them, which is just really smart. It's just taking that same psychology and just giving it a different interface. But you can't start with that because that needs a network effect to happen. You still have to start with solving the initial problem, which I'll talk about later in a second. But I love how it's essentially like, yes, it's a calendar app and it's really helpful for students to track everything. I've talked about this, but it's kind of like an events app wrapped inside a calendar app. Again, like there's these group calendars, I think is really powerful probably, like to be able to see who's going to the game, who's going to the book club, whatever, and knowing which ones you want to go to because, your friends are going or your crush is going. And so now you don't have to go around, text people, coyly ask people if they're going or not. Because you can check on the app. And so I'm sure people love that. So that's really smart. The social features are insane, but it starts with solving the problem. There's a famous Chris Dixon quote. He's a partner at A16Z. He said, you want users to, when they come to your app, to come for the tool, but stay for the network. And that's exactly what Saturn did. And that's how apps consistently grow to take off and stay where they are because they have that network built in. People initially came to Saturn for the tool, to have their schedule in one place and for it to be so much easier to track what you need to do and when. But then as more people join and everyone in your school joined the app, now there's a network and you're staying for that network because you want to see who's in what classes, who's doing what tonight, and so on. So that's just a really important lesson to understand if you want to build a consumer app. Yes, social features are awesome and they can grow you to millions of users, and they're kind of required to grow to millions of users. But the social aspects can't be the feature. The feature has to be some sort of unique utility or functionality that solves a problem. Then once you've solved that problem and people are coming for that tool, then you can layer on the social features. And then you're in a really promising position to really skyrocket in growth because now you're building the network that people will stay for. And so that just genius strategy of solving an initial problem that no one was really solving, no one was really building a all-in-one calendar for Gen Z and college students, and then layering on those social network aspects, they did an excellent job of building and growing this app, going through school to school, student to student. That's how they started. They didn't send out TikTok ads to appeal to every student in every school. They were really focused on retention rather than that viral growth. They didn't want to have a big pop and then burst like all these other viral consumer apps have. There's a way to avoid that. Every app can hit that super growth and pop, or they can just steadily grow and stay. It's up to how you distribute the app. Like I said, they just went school by school. And for the first, I think it was 17 schools, they had that personal design, making it I Weston, I East High, whatever, having those logos specifically for that school, having the color specifically for that school, have that retention, to have that initial loyal user base going into the schools by going through the most popular students. That's a classic strategy if you're pitching to high school or college students for an app. Go through the popular students, get them interested, so then they tell everyone, and they tell everyone, and everyone wants to do what the popular people are doing. And so that's how you grow really fast. That's how they got, over 50% of the school's users in a few days. And they would just stick after year because they had the tool and they had the network. You don't want to just blanket out to everyone and get a few students in each school, because that's not enough kindling to really start the fire. You need to start with those core users that are kings of their own network, if you will, in their 1,000-person school, to let them do the growth for you. You just have to get that initial person. And that's how they did it early on, and that's why it works so well. Now, I'm going to finish off by getting into monetization soon and how I think they can really blow up and become $1 billion a year revenue company from a free calendar app, which might sound crazy, but I promise you this is actually really smart. Not me, they started it. I have a way to enhance it, which I think is really interesting. So stick around for that. But first, just a few random things. This notification system is really cool. The countdown is always there. So if you just tap your phone, you don't even have to open the app. You see the timer coming down. But because you see it and you see, the whimsy look of it, the timer, the font, the emojis, you're more inclined to click on it and see what else is going on, see what you have next, see who else is about to be free, and so on. So I love that it's always on the homepage. And because it's like a timer like that, you're more inclined to keep it there because you want to see when you'll be done with something. So it's a great way to have users keep notifications on and keep reminding them that, hey, you can open Saturn, you can open Saturn. So really smart there. Calendars in of itself are a very sticky product. Logging them into the app when they're in high school, when they're 13 or 14, sets them up to be a really long-term user. If you get them at 13 or 14, they're probably going to stay at least till they're 18 when they're done with high school, but probably till they're 22 as they go throughout college, and they'll join this new network and want to have the same experiences that they did using Saturn in high school. They might, the time will tell. I don't know if they really talked about this much. They did mention that some stick around, but I'm sure some users keep using this app after college. I use Google Calendar just because that was what I was first introduced to. So I just stuck with it. But if I was first introduced to Saturn and used it my whole life, I don't know why I would switch. Sure, it wouldn't be as social because I'm not, seeing all these people on a day-to-day basis that I saw in high school and college, but it's my calendar, it's what I use. So I'd probably stay in it because why would I really change? So it's a very sticky product. You could have a user for a minimum 8 or 9 years and potentially for the rest of their life. And Saturn does have extremely high retention numbers. They said 90% of users that stick around, I think, for at least 30 days, return year after year. So they don't just stay for a year, they stay year after year, which is incredible retention, especially for, again, a viral Gen Z app where most burn out after a year or two if they're lucky, maybe even just a few months. Which again, because it's not a social app, it's a utility app with social features. Another thing that I thought was really interesting that I heard the founders say is they were really thinking about the user when they designed the app. Most importantly, they don't have the longest attention spans, Gen Z. So the app has to be really fast. It has to work well on old phones because, a lot of younger people get hand-me-downs. It has to work offline because, some high schoolers might not have unlimited data. So what are the offline features versus the online ones? And so I like that because I feel like speed just doesn't really get talked about a lot, or considering every type of user you might have and ensuring the app performs really well. And I think that's becoming more and more important, especially as you target younger generations who grow up in this infinite scroll, immediate reaction, TikTok video like interface, where their attention spans are so short now that if your website's loading for 2 seconds, they'll never go to it again. So it's really important to be quick, and I like that the founder really emphasized how important speed is to the design of this app. So I thought that was really interesting. Unique way they're improving speed. I can't show you because I can't go through onboarding. I'm not a student. You used to have to type in your events, like type in when you have calculus, when you have history, and so on. Now you can just take a picture of your schedule and they'll have an AI read the image and populate your calendar for you. So onboarding takes 10 seconds, which is just really smart, really well done. As quickly as you can get the user in the app, using the app as possible, understanding what to do, of course, is excellent. And so they do that really well. So last thing, how Saturn monetizes. This is really interesting. And then I'll talk about how I think they can enhance it. So Saturn shows ads in a calendar view. I'm not really sure how it looks because I can't see, but I'm sure, when you're scrolling through, you have calculus 2:30 to 3:30, you practice 3:30 to 5:30, and then you have a block. And then maybe in that block, they'll pop in like a recommended 7 o'clock Snow White at AMC, with a link to go to the site. The CEO also mentioned something about how everyone will see a video sometimes. I don't know if it's just at 3 o'clock, they just throw a video at everyone, like an ad that they just have to watch before they can use the app a little more, like a movie trailer. But what's really interesting is everyone's seeing that app at the same time. So you all might be just hanging out, sitting at the lunch table, someone's looking through their app and they all see that same ad for the new Mission Impossible movie. Now they're all talking about it. They're like, oh, I actually kind of want to see that movie. Should we all go? And then someone would be like, yeah, sure. Click on the ad, buy the tickets. And so it's just this really targeted advertising for companies because, again, these people think in groups. They have their own thoughts, sure, but they care more about what other people are doing. And so if you're able to just tap into those networks, friend group by friend group, show them the same ad and then get the conversation starting about, hey, should we do this? should we all spend money on going to this movie? That's probably a really high ROI on an ad. Much higher than showing that movie trailer on just a random TikTok scroll that people are going to see alone and at different times. If you're showing them all the same ad at the same time, because you can just send it to that school. You have the network, you have the distribution. You say, send it to this school at 4 o'clock. If they're on the app, they're all going to see that ad. Now they're talking about it. So I think that's genius. Can that ad product get to $1 billion in revenue? I think so, because I think that is really powerful, but I think they can enhance it, just a small tweak to make it just way more monetizable and make way more money, while also substantially increasing the buy-in to these ads that students see. So I'm thinking, I don't think they need to change advertising. I think that's actually a really smart way of advertising, just throwing it in the calendar as a recommended thing, or maybe flashing a video. But I think they can create affiliate marketing opportunities within the app for students. I think they should allow companies to partner with students to make a custom video or post something that says, hey, I'm going to the Knicks game tonight. I have 10 tickets for 20% off. Does anyone want to go? And have that in the 7 o'clock block with that person's picture and their name. And it's saying, hey, I'm going. Who wants to come? And you tap on it and it has the details, maybe, like a video, whatever. And the Knicks will pay that student an affiliate fee for everyone who signs up for the tickets. And everyone's happy to see that ad because someone popular at school is inviting everyone to go to an event. The same can be said for concerts, but maybe Uber is doing a sponsor and giving this person money to say, hey, I'm going to this concert. Uber's there and back will be 20% off. Who's in? And Uber might get 50 students to go to that concert now because the popular person's going, and then their friends are going, and their friends are going, and so now you're inclined to go because you know who's going to the event, and you're going to use Uber because you get a discount. So it's this beautiful system where companies are paying, probably the popular students, to be more social with more people, to try to get people to go to more in real life events, either with friends or people they might not even know, people at their school that they're friends with on Saturn that can see their schedule. And then those people might be like, oh, we haven't really talked before, but I like Taylor Swift. I want to go to the concert, and maybe I'll see her there and bump into her and we can chat. So, I'll go. I'm glad to see this ad and I know who's going, and I'll opt into it. So it's actually a good ad because one, it's really effective in that way, but it's also good in the sense that it's promoting in real life events, and it's promoting, potential new friendships and trying to meet new people at actual events rather than just online or not even talking to people. So it's awesome that students can monetize their brand in this way, their popularity, but it's also great that that can be spread out to other students and encourage meetings. Now you could say that this is kind of difficult for the advertisers because it's small. A big school will have 1,000 students in the high school. Most schools probably only have 200 a grade, but you get my point. There's not a lot of people in that ad, but I'm sure how it works is Uber says, hey, we want to run an ad for this weekend in New York. We know the Kendrick Lamar concert's coming up. We know people are going to want to take Ubers. So in the New York, New Jersey, Philly area, we want to run an ad to every school in that area on Saturn to say, hey, if you're going to the concert, use Uber. And then Saturn, maybe, instead of making Uber go through each of the individual 1,000 schools, Saturn probably sends a message to the most popular, followed, highest friend count users at those schools, or the users they built those relationships with already as, again, the intro students to get into that school. They'd probably contact them and say, hey, we have this ad opportunity with Uber. Do you want to post about it? And Saturn kind of handles that for Uber. And it should be pretty easy because they just have to send a message and they know who to send it to, whereas Uber doesn't know. So it's not really a lot of work for either party. So, Uber's not just doing one ad for 1,000 students in one school. They could be doing one ad for 1,000 students in 1,000 schools that all really targeted and really applied to those students. So it's worth the time to make it and to promote it. So I think that's just a genius opportunity. I'm really curious to see if they're thinking about that, when they plan on rolling that out. I don't know why they wouldn't do it right now. So I certainly think, Saturn can be a $1 billion company for all the reasons I said. There's no shortage of TAM. There's hundreds of millions of high school and college students all around the world, even if you're just in the US, tens of millions. So they certainly have a massive TAM. I don't think they need to change at all. I think the app can stay exactly how it is, and you just add that affiliate marketing, advertising piece to it. And I think this app can be $1 billion app while not branching out like the other apps did, not taking on TikTok, not taking on Instagram, staying a calendar app for high school and college students and just monetizing that more effectively. I'm really rooting for Saturn because I think they're increasing, in real life interactions, which Gen Z and Gen Alpha really need more of badly. And it encourages, to actually go to events with people you want to see rather than just texting them or texting about the event or never even interacting with that person. And I'm sure kids love it, and I'm sure they feel more social. I mean, they're also using calendars. Like, how crazy is that? Like, imagine a 15-year-old loving their calendar. Like, kids are becoming way more organized and productive by using Saturn. They're not missing things. They're not missing classes, practices, homework, or whatever, because they're much more inclined to open the app to see what everyone else is doing. And if they do that, they're going to see what they have to do. So I love that Saturn's increasing productivity, increasing organization, as well as in-person interactions and potentially some more spontaneous interactions, like creating plans with people indirectly. I'm not going to text someone I don't really know if they're going to this thing tonight, but I can see that they're going, and I can say, okay, well, I know they're going, I'll go and I can talk to them. I've been wanting to talk to them. So I love that. Again, I think this app is awesome. I'm really rooting for them. If you are in high school or college, check out Saturn. If you use Saturn, let me know if you like it. Let me know why you like it. If you work at Saturn, reach out and saw this somehow. Let me know if my idea is interesting, crazy, whatever. If you're thinking about that, I think it's really interesting. So I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this, more deep dives on apps that I think are really interesting. I'm also going to be posting some shorts about this video, but also different consumer app strategies, not necessarily about Saturn, which I think are going to be really interesting as well. I have a lot of notes, so that should be fun. So hope you like this video. Consider liking, consider subscribing, and I'll talk to y'all soon.